Right. So, this is going to be a fun one. You sent in this Code Emporium video.
Oh, yeah.
Llama explained.
Yeah.
And I have to say, even just skimming through, it seems like there's some pretty mind-blowing potential here.
Absolutely.
This model is making some serious wave. And some are saying it could be a real competitor to ChatGPT.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see this level of innovation in such a short time. What really grabs me is how Llama 2 is approaching the whole language model game differently, especially with its size.
Okay, so before we get ahead of ourselves,
Yeah.
you know how I love analogies?
Oh, yeah.
Imagine playing like a giant predict the next word game, but with a computer. That's kind of the foundation of Llama 2, right?
Yeah.
It's basically gobbling up tons and tons of text and figuring out all the patterns.
You nailed it with that analogy. It's about recognizing those patterns, but it's also about how those patterns are then applied.
Okay.
The video mentions pre-trained and fine-tuned models. It's more than just definitions, though. How does that fine-tuning really shape Llama 2 for specific jobs?
Yeah.
Like becoming a chatbot.
That's a good point. The video touches on Llama 2 chat.
Yeah.
But it would be really cool to know the mechanics behind it. Like, is it a complete overhaul or more like specialized training on top of that general knowledge?
It's more like giving someone with a broad education a specialized skill set.
Okay.
The pre-trained model already has a massive base of knowledge,
Right.
but then you focus its learning on a specific task, like conversation.
Okay.
That's what creates Llama 2 chat.
Gotcha. And the video mentions this thing, reinforcement learning through human feedback.
Right.
Which sounds super complex.
Yeah.
Is it really as sci-fi as it sounds?
It's actually a pretty clever system.
Okay.
Think of it like this Llama 2 chat comes up with multiple responses to your question, and human reviewers pick the best, most helpful one.
Right.
This feedback loop constantly refines the model, making it smarter and more aligned with what we consider good responses.
So it's not just learning from raw data.
Right.
It's learning from our human preferences, too.
Exactly.
That's pretty interesting. Another thing that caught my eye was the fact that Llama 2 is open source.
Yeah.
Unlike some other models like ChatGPT.
Right.
What's the big deal about that?
It's huge. Open source means the code is out there for anyone to examine, understand, and even build upon.
Wow.
Think of the potential transparency collaboration, maybe even faster innovation.
Yeah.
It's a whole different approach to development.
It's like the difference between a secret recipe
Uh-huh.
and one that's shared with the whole world. Who knows what amazing dishes could come from everyone experimenting
Exactly.
and adding their own twist.
And speaking of twists,
All right.
one of the things that surprised me was that Llama 2 is actually smaller than some of its rivals like GPT-3. Does that mean it's less powerful?
The video actually emphasizes that Llama 2 achieves some pretty impressive results, even with a smaller size. It mentions faster inference time as a benefit.
Yes.
What does that even mean in a practical sense?
Think of it this way. You're having a conversation with a chatbot.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to wait forever for a response, right?
Right.
Inference time is basically how fast the model processes your question
Okay.
and spits out an answer. Llama 2's smaller size allows for faster inference, so the conversation feels much more natural and real-time.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Especially if you want these models to feel more human-like. The video also highlights some resources like Hugging Face,
Oh, yeah.
which sounds like a playground for AI enthusiasts.
It is. Hugging Face has pre-trained models code, you name it.
Wow.
It's a great place to explore and experiment with different AI tools, including Llama 2.
And it even mentions tools like Cholera and AutoTrain,
Yeah.
which seem a little more advanced. What could people do with those?
Think of them as power tools for AI.
Okay.
Cholera helps you train models efficiently,
Mm.
even if you don't have a giant supercomputer.
Right.
And AutoTrain lets you fine-tune models on your own machine.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty incredible access for individual developers.
Wow. Giving developers that level of access is pretty powerful. What are some of the things they could do with Llama 2? What are the possibilities?
Well, imagine being able to tailor a language model to your specific needs.
Okay.
You could build a chatbot that specializes in a certain field, generate creative content with a specific style, or even create new educational tools.
That's a great segue.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the listener sent in a 77-page research paper on Llama 2.
Yes.
Before we get too deep into those applications, maybe we could peek into some of the more technical details highlighted in that paper.
I'm game. What I found fascinating is that this paper goes beyond the basics
Okay.
and dives into the architecture of Llama 2.
Right.
Things like the decoder-only transformer architecture, which might sound intimidating, but is actually pretty intuitive once you break it down. So remember that analogy of predicting the next word. The decoder-only part of the architecture means Llama 2 tackles a sentence one word at a time, building understanding sequentially. It's like solving a mystery, where each word is a clue leading to the next.
I can see how that makes sense for language, where the order of words matters so much.
Right.
But what about the transformer part? What makes that special?
Think of transformer as a super efficient engine for processing language.
Okay.
It allows the model to analyze relationships between words, even those far apart in a sentence. This is a game changer for understanding context and nuance, which are crucial for natural language.
That's fascinating. It's like the model is able to see the whole picture, not just individual words in isolation.
Exactly.
This research paper also dives into the massive amount of data used to train Llama 2.
Right.
Something like 2 trillion tokens.
Yeah, it's a lot of data.
Why is that scale so important?
Imagine trying to learn a new language from just a few phrases. You might grasp the basics, but you'd miss out on the richness and complexity.
Right.
Feeding the model trillions of tokens is like immersing it in a vast ocean of language, allowing it to absorb all the subtle nuances and connections.
It's like the difference between learning from a textbook and living in a country where you're constantly surrounded by the language.
Exactly.
The depth of understanding would be totally different.
And remember, this vast data set includes not just text, but code as well.
Oh, wow.
This means Llama 2 can understand and even generate code, opening up a whole new world of possibilities.
That's mind-blowing. The video touches on fine-tuning.
Yeah.
But the research paper goes into more detail about how tools like Cholera and AutoTrain can really customize Llama 2. Could you give us a concrete example of how someone might fine-tune this model?
Let's say you're passionate about history.
Okay.
And want to create a chatbot that can have in-depth conversations about specific historical events. With Llama 2, you could fine-tune it on a massive data set of historical texts.
So it's like taking someone who already speaks fluent English.
Right.
And then giving them a crash course in ancient Rome or medieval Japan.
Exactly. Fine-tuning allows you to take that general knowledge base and focus it, making the model an expert in a particular domain. You could even fine-tune it on your own writing style.
Oh, wow.
To create a chatbot that feels uniquely yours.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But as we're getting deeper into these details, it's hard not to compare Llama 2 to other models.
Yeah.
Especially the big one, ChatGPT.
Right.
The video mentions some key differences, particularly around being open source. But are there other distinctions that this deeper dive reveals?
The research paper highlights a few things.
Okay.
Firstly, while both Llama 2 and ChatGPT utilize the transformer architecture, the specific implementations differ. For example, Llama 2 uses a technique called grouped query attention, which makes it more efficient, especially when dealing with long sequences of text.
So even though they're both built on a similar foundation, there are unique engineering choices that set them apart.
Precisely. It's like comparing two cars that both have engines and wheels, but have very different designs under the hood.
Gotcha.
These design choices can have a significant impact on performance efficiency and even the types of tasks a model excels at.
We talked earlier about Llama 2 being smaller than some of the larger GPT models.
Right.
What are the implications of that difference, especially in a head-to-head comparison?
It's a classic trade-off. While larger models like GPT-3 might have a slight edge in raw performance on certain standardized tests, they come at the cost of requiring enormous computing power.
Right.
Llama 2's smaller size makes it much more accessible, especially for researchers and developers with limited resources.
So it's about finding the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
If you need a model that can run on a standard computer or even a mobile device, Llama 2's smaller size is a huge advantage.
Absolutely. It opens up AI development to a much wider audience, which is one of the exciting things about the open source approach.
And speaking of access, another difference this deep dive brings up is in how these models are trained.
Right.
ChatGPT is famously secretive about its training data.
Yeah.
But Llama 2's paper goes into great detail about the data it's learned from. What kind of insights can we gain from this transparency?
Transparency is key, especially when dealing with AI that's learning from human language. Knowing what a model has been trained on helps us understand its strengths, weaknesses, and potential biases.
Okay.
It allows researchers to audit the data and identify areas for improvement.
That makes a lot of sense. If you know the ingredients,
Right.
you can better understand the flavor of the dish, so to speak.
Exactly. And it also allows for more targeted fine-tuning. If you know the model is weak in a certain area,
Right.
you can specifically train it on data to address that gap.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, the more we learn about these models, the more questions pop up. For example, the video mentions that Llama 2 can generate different responses to the same question.
Right.
How does that work, and what are the implications?
It's a fascinating aspect of these probabilistic models. They're not simply retrieving pre-programmed answers.
Okay.
Instead, they're generating responses based on a complex web of probabilities and learned patterns.
Right.
So even with the same prompt, slight variations in the model's internal state can lead to different outputs.
So it's not like asking a computer to do a simple calculation,
Right.
where the answer is always the same. There's an element of randomness.
Yeah.
Or perhaps creativity involved.
That's a great way to put it. This inherent variability makes these models feel more dynamic and less robotic.
Okay.
It also opens up interesting possibilities for creative applications, like using them for brainstorming or generating multiple story ideas.
It's like having a conversation with someone who can surprise you with new perspectives and unexpected insights, rather than just repeating the same talking points over and over.
Exactly. And this ability to generate diverse responses is something that researchers are actively exploring and trying to better understand.
This deep dive has been incredible, but I think it's important to acknowledge that no model is perfect.
Of course.
What are some of the limitations of Llama 2? Where does it still struggle, and what are the challenges researchers are facing?
One of the biggest challenges with any large language model is ensuring factual accuracy.
Okay.
Llama 2, like its counterparts, can sometimes generate responses that are factually incorrect or misleading.
So it's not a magic truth machine.
Right.
We still need to approach its output with a critical eye
Yeah.
and double-check information, especially when accuracy is crucial.
Absolutely. It's like any source of information. We need to evaluate it, consider the context, and use our own judgment. Another challenge is dealing with potential biases that might creep into the model's responses.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about some of the challenges and limitations of large language models,
Right.
particularly around factual accuracy and potential biases.
Those are definitely crucial areas of ongoing research and development.
Yeah.
As these models become more powerful and integrated into our lives, it's essential to ensure they're providing reliable information
Right.
and not perpetuating harmful stereotypes.
It makes you wonder, what steps are being taken to address these challenges? Is it all on the developers?
Well,
Or is there a role for users like us to play
yeah,
in shaping how these models evolve?
it's definitely a collaborative effort.
Okay.
On the development side, there's a lot of work being done on improving training data, developing new algorithms,
Right.
and creating mechanisms for users to flag problematic outputs.
So it's not just about making the models bigger and faster.
Right.
It's about making them smarter,
Exactly.
fairer,
Yeah.
and more aligned with human values.
And that's where users come in. By providing feedback, highlighting biases, and engaging in thoughtful discussions about the implications of these technologies, we can collectively help steer AI development in a positive direction.
It's almost like we're all becoming part of the training process,
Yeah.
helping these models learn not just language, but also responsible behavior.
That's a great way to think about it. The more we interact with these models and provide constructive feedback, the better they'll become at reflecting our values and serving our needs.
This brings us to a broader question that's been lingering in my mind throughout this whole deep dive.
Okay.
We've talked about the technical aspects, the potential applications, and the challenges, but what does it all mean for us as individuals and as a society? How will Llama 2 and AI more broadly shape our lives in the years to come?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's hard to predict the future with certainty.
Right.
But we can already see glimpses of how AI is transforming various aspects of our lives.
The video mentions applications like chatbots. But from what we've discussed, the potential goes way beyond just conversation.
Absolutely. Think about fields like education, healthcare, creative industries. AI can personalize learning experiences, assist doctors in diagnosis and treatment, and even help artists and writers explore new creative frontiers.
It's both exciting and a little daunting to think about all the possibilities.
Yeah.
Are we on the cusp of a technological revolution, or is this just hype?
I think it's safe to say we're witnessing a profound shift in our relationship with technology.
Okay.
AI is no longer just a tool. It's becoming